Good morning. This is the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Fund Board meeting of Friday, January 10th, 2025. It's 9 a.m. or a couple minutes after at this point. Um, so welcome everyone. Please note that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair will inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Okay, seeing none. Um, as this is a remote meeting, I'll call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Uh, Laura Schufelt,
Here.
Mark Milne,
Here.
Andy Clyburn,
Here.
Mark Els, here. Okay, thank you. We always open with public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to comment? All right, seeing none, we will move into topics for discussion. Topic number one is begins with a request from Standard Holdings, a reconsidering of denial of additional mortgages on residences at 850 Falmouth Road. Tim Talman of Standard Holdings and Attorney Kilroy. I believe, I don't know if I see, do I see Attorney Kilroy out there? No, I don't. Tim Talman's here though. So, Jillian, any first words before we let Tim discuss a reconsideration with us?
I have nothing to add other, this is a continuation from the previous meeting. We were going to hear this on the 3rd, but we did not convene.
Okay, and is our attorney hasn't joined us yet, has he?
No, Bob Galvin will not be present, and I'm not sure if Kate is joining us, Kathleen O'Connor. She has weighed in on a couple of topics, and she has seen Attorney Galvin's opinion on some of these issues, but I did not hear from her on this particular one.
Okay. All right, Tim. Welcome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just to refer to the last meeting where this was denied, I was unaware I was on the agenda. That's why I failed to show up the meeting until Jake Dewey texted me, and at that point it was near the end of the meeting. So just my apologies for not being there. If you've read the December 6th correspondence that we sent into the town, during the project construction, there were more funds necessary to complete it. And that's what that 1.4 represents, was money or monies that my partner and I injected into the project to get to the finish line. And so at this point, our goal is to memorialize that debt, and the loan was made to the project, and we want to memorialize it by securing it by the project. We have received approval from EOHLC as well as the bank to record that mortgage. And basically that's what it is for. Again, as I said, we didn't request money from anyone. We were fortunate at the time to have the extra funds to get the project to the finish line.
Okay. Thank you. Members of the board, procedurally, I am concerned that I don't have our attorney here to directly advise relevant to questions. So before we get into the detail of this, and this will hold true for all of the items on the agenda today, I would like to just speak with the board for a moment before we get into the merits of the request for reconsideration. Board, the lack of the presence of our attorney is of concern to me, certainly. What's your feelings on this? Laura, I'll ask you first.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, I think that there's some general questions we can ask, the questions that we were, asking the last time. Um, I, I don't know that, it may be that we want further, clarification or direction from the attorney. I don't think he weighed in on it last time, except to
No.
kind of agree that we were asking the right questions. So my feeling is we should ask the questions, and if we still have concerns, um, or, or, concerns whether we can or can't reconsider, or whether we should or shouldn't reconsider. I think, we wait till he's here, but I'm comfortable moving forward with questions, and maybe it can resolve it and maybe it can't.
Great, thank you. Mark Milne?
I agree. I'm comfortable moving forward, unless an issue comes up that would require legal advice.
Great, thank you. Andy Clyburn?
I concur.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll proceed. Okay, so Tim's introduced his, the request for consideration. We have the letter from Attorney Kilroy. What questions do we have from the board relevant to this request? Laura, please.
Through you,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Tim, did you do a cost certification at the end of the project?
We did. The only way for HDIP to be fully approved was through a cost certification that the state approved and then released their certificate for HDIP funds. So yes.
So according to our grant agreement, and we did have a condition that we would have a final budget before closing, which as a trust member, I didn't get. I'm not sure if anyone else in the town got that, but we weren't supposed to release funds until we got that. So the last budget we have is from your application, which of course didn't reflect your costs or your rents, your operating, anything that in real time by the time you began construction. So that's why I'm looking for, first of all, looking for a cost certification to justify the funds going in, and then also whether or not the project can support a third mortgage. And then my question is, are you cashing out? Is it deferred? And what does that do to your cash flow?
Okay, I can get the cost certification immediately, first off. Second, regarding the ability of the project to afford that, that can be turned on and off. And if you look at, excuse me, one moment.
It's the perils of working from home.
I apologize for that.
I have a dog too, Tim. Does the same thing whenever I'm home.
So the options are to refinance. There's cash flow. If you were to look back on the original budget, there is excess cash flow, which would have been a return to the owners. That in turn is what pays this. But the reality is, the key is to keep the project moving, in operation. So if there aren't funds, this is the first piece that gets turned off, and we would not jeopardize. We're a related party to the first mortgage, which is most important. We would not do anything to jeopardize the covenants there or the cash flows that go to repay that. The only way this gets repaid is through a refinance, which our note comes up in November of 26. And then we potentially would request this amount added to the remaining principal to refinance or not, or through the sale. But short of that, it sits there, and we can control how and when it gets paid to make sure we're in compliance with everything in front of it, which we would. That's what we do.
And do you have covenants that have a minimum cash flow, minimum debt service coverage on your first mortgage?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. That's very tight. This is very loose. So really there is, it's a simple mortgage. It's one page. It's just memorializing that the property secures the notes effectively. We really have no rights relative to the first mortgage and the trust. And again, as I said, EO HLC's approved it as well as the bank.
Okay, any other questions, Laura?
I'll move on to someone else. I may come back.
Yeah, Mark, anything? No.
No.
Andy? No. I'm still in the position to want to hear from our Mr. Galvin, our Attorney Galvin. Based on what Tim is asking us and to be advised by him as we proceed. So, but Laura, certainly if you feel as though we have adequate information to act without his advice, I would certainly listen to that thought. That's all.
I think if we receive the information, the cost certification, and, an updated operating statement or something to, I mean, it doesn't have, it's not a cash out now unless there's, unless everyone agrees to it. There's covenants on the first mortgage. I'm a little more comfortable with it, but I do want to see the cost certification to verify the money going in. That's, I think, and then any comments that Mr. Galvin would have, after he reviews what we've done today, our questions today.
Thank you. Tim, is that something that you can provide? Our next meeting is February 7th. Is that something that you can provide by then so that at that meeting we can give you an answer?
Yes, I could provide that today, but yes.
Okay. Board members, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to proceed with a vote on this? Or do you want to defer until we obtain that information, receive the advice of the attorney, and then proceed based on that information? Laura, how would you like to proceed?
I'd like to receive that information before we take a vote on this.
Thank you. You good with that, Laura?
Yes.
Okay, Andy, you good with that?
I agree. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll move this topic to our next meeting, Tim, on the 7th, I believe, of February. And assuming that we get that information, and we will make sure that we have in person or in writing ahead of time, our attorney advising relevant to that, and therefore we'll be able to move forward. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Next item on the agenda is a request from Cape Built LLC to transfer interest in 255 Main Street and revise assignment of the CPC mortgage lien and regulatory agreement to agents of River School. And here with us is attorney Rob Brennan from Cape Built. Jillian, I'll ask you first. Is there anything that you want to open with relevant to this item?
I just wanted to note that that Bob Galvin did provide an opinion last night. He was able to. He was caught short with a court date that he had to attend, and that's why he wasn't here. But he did provide that, and I think you've all seen that. And hopefully, if there are any questions, we can convey those back. But I think it is, I'll let Attorney Ford speak to it, but it does not appear like something you need any action on at this point. Conversation and information, but no action. Thank you.
Yeah, I won't replicate what I said on the previous item, but that will hold true as I stated as we move through this. I think that in reading, I did read that that was provided to us by the attorney. And I think we need to be mindful that the role of the town manager versus the role of me as town manager as the chair of the trust are two different roles. And so we've got to be careful of even though I think there's when the council created this trust fund and put the town manager as the chair, it was intentional in that they wanted this trust to be in line with what the town of Barnstable municipal was doing. But those are two separate roles, two separate authorities. And so certainly I will go through the same process internal relevant to a reg agreement with our town council, our town attorney, and then I will go through the same process we just discussed relevant to the prior topic with our attorney who serves the trust. So, Rob, but you probably knew all that before I said it. So please share with us your request.
No, thank you. I think as it's stated, this is, transfer the property to the Riverview School and the Riverview's assumption. And I know, that both Riverview School attorney Mike Ford, as well as their head of school, Stuart Miller, are both on today. So this is, Riverview stepping into the shoes of Cape Bill 255 Main Street with regard to the regulatory agreement and the mortgage as spelled out. But I do know that Attorney Ford and my attorney, Paul Tardif, have been in conversation with Bob Galvin. So I would, turn it over to the two of them. But, we understood that this is a pretty, straightforward process and that there would be an assignment, in prepared, as I understood it, in your position, Mr. Ells, as town manager, executing that. But I'll turn it over to Attorney Ford and Attorney Tardif.
Sure, Mike, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Ells. As Bob said, I represent the Riverview School, who was purchasing this property from Cape Bill. And part of that purchase is that we are taking title subject to this mortgage and regulatory agreement. And on behalf of the school, I can simply tell you and the rest of the trust that Riverview understands the obligations of the regulatory agreement and the mortgage with respect to the two units that are involved and the requirement for 99 years of virtually in perpetuity of the two units involved to keep them under that affordability restriction, and certainly intends to live by that. I agree with, although I haven't seen Bob Galvin's opinion, it didn't make its way to my email. Apparently it's saying that this is not a trust matter, it's a CPA matter, and therefore you need to put your other hat on in order to get this done and assist us to get it done. So if that's what it says, I certainly agree with that. I guess from the school standpoint, since we have a timing issue in terms of the closing, we would like to, if you could give me some idea what the internal process is that in terms of timing to get this done. We have drafted to try to move this along assumption and assignment agreements, which we had sent to Mr. Galvin, but obviously he being the attorney for the trust, as you say, this is going to really be a question between you and the town attorney's office. So we could provide those to the town attorney's office in an effort to try to move this along.
I would appreciate that occurring. And they, as I stated in the beginning, they are separate. Um, I will be honest, and there have been absolutely no conversations with me by our town attorney's office relevant to this matter. And everything could be perfect and in order and appropriate. But absent that discussion, I will seek that advice of our town attorney prior to proceeding. Actually, Rob was at the town council meeting last night and he mentioned that he would be here and I had seen the agenda, which prompted thoughts and also seeing Bob Galvin's, opinion this morning, kind of solidified that, but I need to be advised, certainly in both capacities. And so, in this case, I know you have a timeline. I will promptly, with my other hat as town manager, begin a discussion with legal upon completion of this trust board meeting and try to, try to be reasonable in meeting any, timelines you have. So
Appreciate that, Mr. Els, and we'll assist in any way we can, obviously, and cooperate, and certainly provide whatever documents we're going back and forth with Mr. Galvin to the town attorney's office and your office, so that they might be of some assistance. So, and then we'll wait to hear back.
Thank you so much. It's no reflection on your transaction at all. This is more procedural for me to be advised appropriately before making a decision.
Understood. Understood. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Tardif, I don't know if you have anything to say, sir.
I don't have much to add. I know that Mr. Galvin has made some suggested changes to that assignment agreement. I got it on my email this morning. So I know that when I spoke to him last night, we were really trying to get this thing done with a goal of today. I don't mean signing today. I mean just getting the documents ready for your review. So that's what we're going to try to do. But I appreciate your efforts, and I think the memo, I haven't seen it either, but I think that it does accurately reflect the process that has to go forward. So I have nothing else to add, but I thank you for your time.
Sure, Mr. Miller and Mr. Brennan, just for my sake and the board's sake, is there a timeline here, like a critical path? Certainly, Mr. Tardif and Mr. Ford's comments would lead me to believe that there is.
Well, we had, initiated this, through the CPC, reaching out, through, Jillian, I think it was a little over a month ago, and, had initially, been directed to town council. Town council then kind of directed us back out, or maybe it was Jillian who directed us back out to Galvin. So this has been in the works, for a little bit over a month. Closing was scheduled, is scheduled for next week. But again, we had originally brought this to the town's attention. I think it was over a month ago. I understand, where things stand now. Certainly, we, as I think you heard from Attorney Ford and Attorney Tardif, anything that we can do to help inform and facilitate and expedite, we are stand at the ready to do. And any any priority or consideration that you could give it would again be greatly appreciated.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Mr. Miller, sir.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add, Mr. Els. We'd love to get this done as soon as possible, and appreciate your attention to it.
Understood, and you have my attention on this. Thank you. Okay, board members, before we depart, we have many people here, and certainly perhaps there may be questions that could be answered outside of my concerns. Yes, Ms. Schufeld.
Thanks, Mr. Els. Is there a monitoring agreement that is part of the documentation? I know one of the concerns is that that these units need to be um, rented in an open and fair way and also monitored annually. And as inclusionary or LAU units, that's on the town, and the town typically has a private, or public, entity that does the monitoring. So I'm just wondering if either there was one that's being, transferred, or whether you have set up a new one.
These units, Laura, are at 100% of AMI, so they're
Yeah.
not, they're not
Not LAU, but they still need to be monitored.
right. And it's the regulatory agreement, that was put in place. Housing assistance has been certifying the eligibility, of tenants, and we've been filing the reports with the planning department.
And so there's a monitoring service agreement, or there's,
It's only what's in the regulatory agreement. The regulatory agreement didn't call for any other monitoring agreement outside of that.
Other questions? No? Seeing none? All right, I will move this item to our February 7th with the condition that we will begin internal discussions immediately with legal department. And who is the point of contact, Mr. Ford and Mr. Tardif, or is it, Mr. Miller or Mr. Brennan from our legal department? How would you like that? How does that normally proceed?
This is Mr. Ford. I would hope that maybe Mr. Brennan and Mr. Tardif and myself could all be
Great.
involved in
Great.
contact.
No, that's what I will, I will discuss this with the town attorney relevant to the issues of the reg agreement. And then also with Mr. Galvin. Yes, Laura.
Sorry.
I just have a question. I'm not sure that the trust, has a role, because it was CPA funds that didn't come through the trust. So I think it's your role as town manager. This is my personal opinion. As you know, I'm not a lawyer, but
Yep.
my personal opinion is that the trust doesn't have a role, and maybe as advisory. So I think it's kind of an internal.
I mean, unless the board is looking to be advisory, if the advice of Attorney Galvin is that this is not a trust fund board issue, then I would take it back under advisement as town manager, meet with town attorney, and address it appropriately from that standpoint. And that's kind of what I gathered this morning, but I don't want to try to, make up the logic behind this. I want to be advised by my counsel. Yes, Assistant Town Manager, please.
Yes, sir. I think perhaps Laura's point was we don't need to refer it to the next trust meeting, that we actually be able to move this internal with our town attorney prior to the 6th of February.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out to me. And so at this point, Jillian, I would like you to update the board as to how this proceeded, just for closure under under your updates, okay?
I will do that. I didn't know, I would, if it's okay with you, read one sentence from Bob Galvin's opinion.
Yep.
His statement, I can prepare a consent to sale in consultation with Mr. Paul Tardif. I plan to discuss this with him as I wait for confirmation as to the town manager's authority. So I think he was just, that's the administrative component that he was going to do. So the attorneys are talking and they will bring that back to you, sir, as opposed to the trust, I believe.
Understood, but my town attorney is the person, not a trust fund attorney who
Correct.
advises me on this. So I want my town attorney to advise me. So what I'd already done was forwarded that to Karen Nover this morning when I read it. So
Very good.
it's
Thank
not
you.
out of line with what Laura said, but thank you, Andy, for pointing out that it really doesn't have to come back to us. I'm going to move it internally. I'm going to have the discussion at the closure of this meeting. And we will continue those discussions immediately, okay? Outside of the trust, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, of course. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chairman Els.
Yes, you're very welcome. Okay, moving on. We have a new application as our next topic of discussion. Copacabana Real Estate Investment. It's 11 Potter Avenue, Hyannis, requesting $450,000 to subsidize the redevelopment of a 0.18 acre site to produce 4 residential rental units, 3 of which will be perpetually deed restricted as affordable to households of 80% AMI. Here with us is Carlos Barboza from Copacabana. But before we hear from Mr. Barboza, I would ask, Jillian, if she has any introductory comments on this.
Well, again, this is, I reviewed the application. It does appear to be complete. And obviously there are, you may have questions. We would obviously also need to have all of the different agreements in place for the perpetual, the deed restrictions and so forth. And the monitoring agreements, if they're at 80%, we would want these units to account towards the town's subsidized housing inventory. I did notice that the floor plans did not convey, and I apologize for that, but I have them here. You have everything else in the packet, and open to questions, of course.
Great. At this point, Carlos, would you like to give us an introduction on this?
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for having me here.
Yes, sir.
And I apologize for being t-shirt because I'm in the hot weather today. So I'm not in the Cape. I apologize for you guys being in the Cape. Sorry about that. I'm not Robert. Anyway, so yes, the floor plans show 2 studio and 1 bedroom apartment. The other 2 bedroom apartment, we're gonna leave out of the whole package there. And we have 2 bay garage facing the Dumont Drive, not 11 Potter, so this is the same building. And the plan is very simple. I don't know what you guys looking for me to answer your question, but
No, well, thank you. That's great. I'm sure there will be questions of the board before we proceed on this, but Jillian, is from your perspective, the application was complete there was a couple of items you said that we still needed information on, or is it?
It was not a question of whether it was complete. Obviously, this it is complete. My problem was that I was not able to forward you the floor plans, which I assume you are all going to want to see at some point. And this would be basically a first reading. This is your opportunity to ask questions about the project itself. And then, as we delve into it, if it is to proceed, I would be working with the applicant to clarify what the responsibilities would be in accepting trust funds.
Great. Okay. So, hearing that, board members, do you have questions? No? Laura?
Hi, Carlos. How are you?
Laura, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm well. Nice to see you. I have a question. Is it tenant paid utilities or owner paid utilities?
So it's 80% AMI. I think the
Yeah.
utility is gonna be part of the package. They're gonna have to pay the utility, but we're planning to have a solar system in place in order to reduce everything's gonna be electrical, so to reduce the bill, like I did for 49 Center Street in Hyannis.
Okay. All right. I was just looking at the rent schedule and it appeared to be that it was including utilities. So, Jillian, if you could just check those
Okay.
rents, just to
Is that
be
said?
accurate. and maybe with the solar reduction, it is accurate. But just to check those. And do you understand the units that are affordable will need to be will need to be a marketing plan and a lottery for those units.
Right.
Open and fair marketing, and then monitored annually, either by the town or with a monitoring service agreement.
Laura, to answer your question, the utility is not included, okay? I don't know if Julian has any application, so.
Okay. Okay, we'll just work with Jillian on getting those accurate to with a utility allowance.
Sorry, no, I have another building in Hyannis, it's 49 Center Street.
Yeah.
When we received the credit for the solar system, we split between the apartments, okay? There's gonna be the same thing with the 11 Potter. So the
Oh,
credit.
okay. But they're not, okay, they're not separately metered.
No, no. Oh, no, it
Okay.
is separate meter, but everybody's gonna have their own credit when they come in. How much you produce every day, every month, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Jillian can just make sure that those are how that's reflected in it. Okay, that was my
Okay, thank you, Laura. Any further comments by the board?
I was just looking forward to seeing the floor plans.
That's fine. So we'll get those. And so at this point, it sounds as though you'll proceed to discussions with Jillian, Carlos, to bring this back to us for final consideration.
Julian, you have the floor plan from us, right? I think we forward that to you.
Yes, I do. My I problem. This is a technical issue, I gather. So the plans themselves are larger than the screen would allow, and when they conveyed, they were not legible. So I apologize for that. They did not get to our trust board members. I'm going to be scanning, working with IT to get a legible scan to our members. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you guys for giving the opportunity to apply for this grant. So it's great for my community. I think people are going to take advantage of that. The Brazilian community is going to have so much opportunity to pay for something they can afford. And I really appreciate that.
Well, we're glad you're here and we appreciate you putting in the effort to do this.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. So is this something that Jillian, we would move, that you will be able to work with Mr. Barbosa to get this to us at our next meeting, or do you expect it to be a subsequent meeting?
My plan would be to convey the floor plans to you first. And if there are any additional questions in the interim, I would plan this for the February 7th agenda. I will also be getting what Laura had asked for. So what I'll need on that probably is more information about the value of those solar credits or the projected value of those credits and how those would be allocated to each of the individual apartments. So that I will work on that with Carlos.
And then as previously stated, certainly Attorney Galvin I will ask that he's reviewed and recommends or advises relevant to that. So, but that's standard. So loop him in for that 7th meeting.
I will also share those floor plans with him. I'm not sure he's terribly interested, but I'll include that as well.
No, I'm more concerned that I received that advice.
I guess the only question that he may have is the bays, which are separate and below the apartments. I have a question for him related to how those get included in the regulatory agreements and the trust agreements, but I'll work with him on that.
I just want to let you
being
know,
a commercial component of a residential structure. But
Yes, sir.
I just want to let you know that I'm in the process right now to get a permit. So I don't know if you have to wait for you guys to say yes or no to me in order for me to proceed with the construction, with the renovation. So I just want to find out from you guys how we're going to proceed after that.
So you'll be seeking a regulatory agreement from the town on this project?
In order for me to start construction, I have to wait for you guys, right? Is that right?
Laura?
I think he's waiting for building permit is what
Yes.
he's
Building, not
referencing, a building
regulatory.
permit, not a,
Yeah.
um, if these are CPA funds, I believe he has to have them approved before construction begins.
If
And
I have
I
the
will,
permit,
you know,
You can get the permit, you just can't start any construction.
got it.
yeah, I'm not you know, just for, for my board's education. The regulatory agreement process is a interesting one in that, though the town manager is the authority that signs it, the town manager may not be involved in that process from start to the time that it comes to signature to the town manager. Comes in many times through planning, um, goes to the planning board after a referral from council, comes back to council, and then as an approved document to the manager. So though it may, especially from the last discussion, and it doesn't sound like you need one here, but if you did, many times, that's why I'm concerned when there's a reg agreement involved, because the entity with the authority to review and approve, though the manager signs, is the town council. So any modification to a reg agreement isn't just up to the town manager. It is a discussion with legal and town council. Yes,
Just in this case, it's just, he has a special permit.
okay,
Did
yeah,
this.
well, that's,
But no, that's good to know because I actually didn't know that you were outside that process.
yeah, well, it's an interesting process and actually one that the town council has identified, and I think they're taking it under review with one of their current ad hoc committees. Yeah, which is a good thing. Yes, sir.
I'm just kind of a little confused here. So that means we're gonna go to the next meeting to be approved or not, or are we?
Well, you're gonna meet with Jillian and she's gonna bring the trust side together to be able to package this, and assuming that it's put on as a topic, that would say to us that it's ready to go. So so yes, that is what I'm assuming will occur based on our discussion. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes, did. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes.
Hi, I just
Hi.
wanted to add a comment here. And Carlos, I heard you say something about how great this would be to serve your community, and which I think is a wonderful idea. But as Laura pointed out, that isn't really who ends up being able to rent the unit, because it has to be. And I'm sure you understand that. I just wanted to be clear that while it may be able to serve members of the Brazilian community or whatever, it can't necessarily on the front end select from that. So
I appreciate you saying that. That's I meant the entire community, but my community. I'm in the first one Brazilian who apply for this kind of grant. I believe so. And I just want to make sure that we are so part of this community now. I don't think anymore as a Brazilian community, as an American community, we're all part of the Cape community. So
that's what I thought you meant, but I just wanted to be really super clear that this is an opportunity for everybody to be able to benefit. So that and great. I'm so grateful that you've stepped forward in your request. So thank you.
I just want to make another comment very fast here. I don't want to be political, but the Brazilian community has been here over 50 years. So when people make a comment about the immigrant community coming from the border, it's not the same immigration. You're not the same immigrants coming to the Cape. We've been here, we've been established for the past 50 years. So I wish that Cape understand, some people in the Cape understand that. We're not only here to stay 6 months and go home. We've been here for 50 years, so.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. But I will stop and note that Andy Clyburn does have a hard stop at 10 a.m. this morning. So we will still have a quorum to continue, but I just wanted to note that. Okay, moving on to topic 2, updates, end of year planning and reporting. Director Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jillian provided you in your packet today an update on where we stand financially with trust funds. We have 98,000, little over 98,000 remaining in our economic development portion of our fund, 178,000 affordable housing funds that are non-CPA funds. The highlight here is that we just received our first payment from WS Development for the landing project, the former Kmart Plaza, as you all know. And that has been credited to the trust. And so we now have an annual stream of revenue coming in from that funding source. And then in our CPC funded activities, we have about $839,000 remaining. I would like to highlight that under the heading of commitments, there are several projects there. Not all of those have been memorialized in grant agreements yet, but we have set them aside based upon action taken by this group. So with that said, I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
No, I don't. Board members, Laura, Andy, any questions? Laura, please.
I just have a question on the Hack Resource Center. What the status of that is?
I may be able to help that. When we were, I think it was July 7th of 24, where we were presented an application for a location that did not proceed. The board was supportive of the concept, and they had agreed that they would bring back more information when they had a purchase and sale that was finalized. My understanding is that they have not come back to us for any funding at this point, but I gathered that they have had purchase and sale of 2 different locations, which they may be approaching you for additional funding for. But I don't have anything in writing, and I don't want to proceed on an assumption.
I think that must have been a meeting I missed because CPA funds are not supposed to be used for transitional housing, only permanent housing. So I'll have to go back and look at that. That's all.
If I could, yes, my understanding was you were not present, and the information came afterwards, and rightfully so, that they would not be, they could not be used for the operation of that shelter. So I guess that that is part of the reason that it's fluid at the moment, and I'm guessing they will come back if there are funds that are required. Obviously, those will have to be consistent with what they can be used for. But it may be that it's not a shelter project, but it may be more of administrative at the moment. I don't have anything in writing from them, I guess is what I'd say.
Okay. Any further questions or discussions? Okay, seeing none. I'll move on to topic number 3, matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Yes, Tim.
I figured while I was on the agenda today, I wanted to give you, the board, a quick update on 199 Barnstable Road, for which we received approval for 600,000 of CPA funds. So we have received all of our building permits. They're in hand. We received final HDIP approval on December 18th. The monitoring services agreement, the LIP is complete. I'm just waiting to submit it, but HAC is working with us on that. And then the monitoring services agreement, exactly similar to 850, is with BHA, Barnstable Housing Authority. So the CPA docs, the regulatory agreement, the deed restriction, et cetera, the mortgage, the note has been completed. And so now within the next 60 days, we will be looking to close on all of the documentation with the CPA, with the bank. Mass Development is going to finance the HDIP award, and likely have, we'll demo probably within the next 60 days or so. We may be able to demo before we actually close on the loan facility, but I wanted to update everyone that everything is on schedule and in the works. So in the next, Q1 here, you will see activity. Just a quick update. I don't know if you have any questions.
I don't. Board members? No. Thank you, sir, for that update.
Sure.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. Topic number 4, minutes from, yes, Jillian.
I'm sorry. I did want to go back to the agenda item of the planning. That I think we need to just discuss. I had the draft of the report that I was going to send to the CPC, and it's extensive. There's a lot of information there, and I was just hoping that at some point you guys could just give me feedback if there's any edits that you have for that. And then also, if you were planning to request additional funding from the CPC, any sort of a tranche or relay of funds, we would probably need to get started on an application for that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, any comments on that? Laura? I think you're muted, Laura.
Sorry. Jillian, I did set some suggested comments just around the seasonal communities, since we are not a designated community, and the regs or guidelines for how to apply for that have not been written yet, and I don't think the council or the town manager has there's nothing for them to do yet. So I think it's a little premature to have it in there.
And as part of the existing communities that are brought into CPC, that actually isn't just, I mean, the body of authority has to vote that as well, as I understand it. So just because you've been designated doesn't mean that you're, for example, in our case, town council has voted to become one. So there are probably a couple of steps to occur before we put something like that in, and we should just be knowing of that.
Very good. Thank you. Good comment. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. Actually, in my town manager's newsletter this week, there's all the links and that information. So if you want to go in and grab it and look at it.
And I'm on the working group, so.
Andy.
I have to sign off, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Note, Andy Clyburn is leaving the trust meeting. Okay. Approval of minutes. Minutes from November 14th, 2024. Do we have any discussion of those minutes? Has the board had time to review those minutes? No. In either case, no. Can we move this item to February 7th?
Absolutely. Thank you. Sorry about
Thank you.
that.
Absolutely, not a problem. Thank you, Laura, for that facial gesture. Um, moving on to topic number 5 for future meetings. Continued discussion of grants versus loans for low-income housing tax credit projects. Do we wish to continue that for a future discussion item?
If I could, I
Yes, Jillian.
included, so Laura and I had a very brief conversation, and she did send me back some, I thought, helpful and clarifying information. And I just included that in the packet. It's, I think, the last page of your packet. And it explains specifically the distinction between loans and grants for LIHTC program projects. And I guess the other, and I'll let her speak to that, but I didn't want to, I didn't want that to go without mention that there was information about that rationale included.
Except it was, if I could,
Yes, of course.
it should be preference for loans over grants for LIHTC projects. And it says grants over loans in Jillian's title. So
Okay.
I think it's a subject for discussion at our next meeting, I think.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item B, under 5, continued discussion of structure for standing account or fund for set-asides of non-CPC funds to purchase or exercise first refusal rights. Julie, go ahead.
If I could, I didn't know if Mark Milne wanted to say anything about this, but this is obviously from prior discussion. It's sort of your concern related to common builder projects. You want to make sure that those deed restrictions, because they are not perpetual, that you had funds set aside to assist with a future purchase price if it was not an affordable price. And I think Mark might had something he wanted to say about how we do that.
Thank you, Jillian. Yeah, so now that we have a source of revenue coming in on an annual basis, my thoughts were to perhaps set aside some of those funds each year, build up a fund for this purpose. I haven't determined like what an appropriate amount would be at this point. I think CPC had done $75,000 several years ago, but I would defer to maybe ask Laura for what her thoughts would be as to what an adequate amount set aside for this committee would be, and we can work on building up to that amount over a multiple year period based on this revenue stream coming in for the trust.
Laura, did you have any comment? Or do you want to take that under thought and then we can discuss it at a future time?
Yeah, I think it's for, if we have time the next meeting, I can do some
Great.
Calculations.
Great. I have one for us. Certainly there's in at least having sat on this board now for I think 14 years. Laura, you were here before me. I think Mark was too, actually. But I think at times it is very important that we make sure that we understand what the strategies and priorities, goals of the town are. And again, I stated earlier in the meeting, I believe, though I wasn't there at the time of the vote, that it was intentional to have the town manager, assistant town manager, and finance director on the board so that we could be consistent. I think in discussions with you, Laura, you've even said to me in other places they don't do it that way. It's completely separate. So, and functions separately from what the strategy and the goals of the town or city are. But in our case, that's not the way. So I think future topic discussion might be to make sure that as our town council reviews and updates its strategic plan, or even in review of its current strategic plan, as we develop other plans in our community under our planning department primarily and committee or committees that may exist, that we at a minimum understand those and at a maximum look for some sort of continuity with them. And so I think we should just put that on the agenda at some point. And I know there are updates going, so I don't, Jillian, know that it needs to be the next meeting. But I do think, and I know Laura serves on one of those ad hocs, I think it would be helpful to make sure that we are knowing, at least, if not, consistent with that. So just to get it out there, I think that's important. This issue of the deed restriction under this Commonwealth Builders Program expiring after a time period, and how do we feel about that? I think that's going to be an item that'll be discussed by our town council, and I say that as town manager because I've heard town councilors discussing it. So I think it's important that we understand it so that when we consider these issues, we're knowing. Again, that's all. So is okay. That's just a suggestion for a future topic.
Thank you. That is very helpful. I appreciate the direction. Thank you.
Good. Good. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. Our next meeting is Friday, February 7th, 2025, 9 a.m. Having no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote. Laura Schufelt,
Yes.
Mark Milne,
Yes.
Mark Ells, yes. Thank you all.